Shalom Israel. Call Halal Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakah Quadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone for teaching me this truth and who rule well. And a sincere salutations to the house of David, you Akim pushing this truth to the four corners of the earth in all truth and all faith and in all sincereness, risking and putting your lives on the line daily for the names Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. It's Zakar'Yah coming at you with another lesson. Lord's willing, it be edifying.
This great reset is as serious and as dangerous a threat to our prosperity, to your prosperity and your freedom, as we have faced in decades, with these powerful bodies, including the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, and even Prince Charles boasting that within a few short years, yes, their words, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Remember, this is not me saying this, this is them. They are even running ads for the Great Reset. A handful of countries will dominate. I wonder which ones they might be. A terrifying coalition of big business, big tech, and left-wing totalitarians are so confident and so brazen. I mean, they just stole the US election, so I guess they're feeling pretty chuffed with themselves, that they are now promising you will own nothing and you will be happy. What they should have added is, and we, the very rich, will own everything and be even happier. Of course they will.
Yeah, we're going to be basically like players in the Sims. You know, the elites are going to be playing Sims with us, or Age of Empires. You know, one of my favorite video games. We're going to be the little pawns in the game. And I just remembered earlier you were talking about geofencing, and you know, the Native Americans were physically, you know, put on the reservations and controlled. But I think it's going to be the same thing. They're going to use the geofencing, the digital apparatus, to physically lock us down in our homes. You know, if you try to leave, if this ever comes to be, we're already seeing this with the COVID rules in other places like Europe, where I have some people I know in Greece, they can't leave their homes, or in Chile right now. So if you try to leave your house, the police are going to come and fine you and arrest you. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff. And so I had another question about the financial.
Can I just say something real quick? Because I just put on, so today it's become more commonly known about biosensors, the development of biosensors to predict like viral load data or something like that. And like that's been going on. That was, you know, I knew that like the first couple months of all of this last year, but now it's coming into mainstream media, right? So what happens if this is the spatial web, your smart environment, like the lock on your door, or the lock on your smart refrigerator, or your ability to get on public transit is mediated by your wallet with biosensor data, right? Like what happens when you have an implantable biosensor that's in you that's transmitting, that lets you know what you're allowed to do. And it may or may not be accurate, you know, or it may or may not be actually aligned with any sort of reasonable like expectation of human life. But simply that is what's happened. And so your ability to even leave your house or get something out of your refrigerator might be restricted depending on what your smart toilet says. And like, it seems very Black Mirror, but the apparatus seems like it's very much in a pilot phase. And can they scale it? You know, that's, you know, part of what I'm looking into lately is around affordable housing, quote unquote, and, you know, the eviction crisis and the shift towards like dormitory style or mass, you know, aggregation housing to put people on pathways back to work, or mental health systems. But those can be built within these opportunity zones here in the United States, which are total tax shelters for the global finance industry to roll their capital gains into low-income areas with no protection for low-income people. And then they can just from the ground up, like build these new forms of smart housing. Some of it probably will just be prefab coming out of the factory, and then they'll just slap it up and stack it together. And then they will pull in people who've been pushed out of their job on workforce pathways. They'll get like subsidized labor because all of these people are being reskilled, right? They'll be reskilled into the smart housing industry. And I think that's something that's connected to like Habitat for Humanity and Youth Build and these things that are like, oh, look, we're going to train you to be, to build housing. Well, what kind of housing exactly? Is it a jail? Are we building affordable housing jails run by religious groups where your behavior is tracked on blockchain? Because if so, that's not charity. That's a jail.
Yeah. Speaking of those biosensors, it'd be like if you had some bad Mexican food today, you can't go out. But another question I had was, the controversy, the topic of cryptocurrencies. Again, by the way, I was going to mention that as you're talking about this system, if people remember, in March 26th of 2020, a little over a year ago, there's that Microsoft patent that ends with the number 060606, which has this schematic of a human body connected to like a Fitbit or an implant that then goes to your smartphone, then goes to the cloud, which is kind of like the schematic of what you just described. But regarding cryptos, my feeling again is that the elites put out Bitcoin, which I think is playing on human nature, greed, and it's going up in price. People are making money, and I think it's being used as a bridge to transition us to this cashless society, which will, I guess, now they're talking about, using the central bank digital currencies. One of my favorite interviews that I did last year was with the Jewish historian Edwin Black, who compares the consequences of such a system to the physical ghettos that Jews were put in. He calls this new system the algorithm ghetto, where nonconformists will digitally be cut off from the system, as you've been mentioning. And, this can translate to total impoverishment or even death in the physical space, because you won't be able to, leave your house or buy food or whatever. And he says no, the problem will be not that the Gestapo will come knocking on your door like it did in the, Soviet Union or Nazi Germany or wherever. The problem will be where no one will be coming. You'll just be left to die alone in your house. And so could you talk about your take on cryptos or the cashless society, central bank digital currencies? How do you see these issues?
Well, so my position on the crypto generally is that there's such a high focus that many people who are not otherwise informed are only familiar with Bitcoin or crypto. They're not understanding that blockchain as a system is meant to be much, much more than that. It's not really, the currency is a key element, but it is far from the only element. And the plan is with digital identity is that everything will become a tokenized asset. It will be so the token may have some relation to an understanding of a fiat currency, but it could also be a right. It could be a bit of information. And so their goal with blockchain identity is that everything about you will be tracked. Everything about you in the smart environment, they will know how many times you opened your smart refrigerator and how many times you went to the smart toilet, and all of that granular data, but also your birth certificate, your voting records, and it will all be sold as private. It's so wonderful. You have all this information about you and it's all private, but MIT has this backdoor called Enigma protocol that allows for querying unencrypted data. Maybe not knowing that it's an individual person, but that they in aggregate can still query on it. So the question then becomes, do we want to live in this spatial web, right? Having a better understanding of the gatekeeping and the limitations that are coming out on the internet right now, the censorship and the things that we're not in control of. We did a ceremony revoking consent outside the Council on Foreign Relations on Easter Sunday. And I put up the video and then they put a banner on it, just for in case of misinformation, here's the Encyclopedia Britannica entry on the Council on Foreign Relations. By the way, our understanding of what the internet is, I think people are getting clearer in the last few months about what it actually is. Do we want that to then come out of the screen and lay over the entire world? And because that is what crypto, whether it's the central bank kind or some wonderful decentralized local currency that you have, it relies on the spatial web, and it relies on this telecommunication systems, 5 and 6G, that unless people can tell me otherwise, comes at tremendous environmental cost.